Well, welcome to another one. Happy New Year. Like a bus, two come at once, eh? Um, Not doing much else to be honest, and I thought, well, it was quite nice to make a video again. Quite enjoyed it, even though it does take longer than I remember to upload them and things like that. But there we go. I was having a look at what to do, and I was thinking of various scenarios and things like that. I'm going to stay with Russia, just because I've been reading about it lately, and looking through the scenarios and everything. And whilst it's all very nice and well, a lot of the time, to pick a fixed pitch battle or an approach to battle, which are nice because you've got to manoeuvre. You don't really, or I don't really play very much rearguard actions, and in Russia there were an awful lot of rearguard actions. It's a different challenge than approaching a battle or just a fixed pitch battle where you don't have much choice in manoeuvring. And I thought, well, let's go to Vyazma. And Vyazma was a small, well, it wasn't even small, there's a lot of troops involved, but it doesn't get much, well, or any, as far as I've seen, coverage. So, of course, we're back in Russia, as I mentioned, and we're going to a place called Vyazma in Russia, and the date is 3rd of November. The Russians are pursuing the French. The French are heading towards Smolensk so that they can restock. There's a big depot at Smolensk. They're starting to run out of supplies. The Cossacks and Russian cavalry are playing havoc with the French supply lines that they have. So the French are along the Smolensk Highway and they reach the village of Vyazma. Now, we've got quite a lot of troops to play with. However, you're going to see in a second that there is a bit of a potential issue. Now, in real life, this is where we are. We're going down towards between Moscow and Smolensk, not quite halfway, maybe a little bit over. We've got this place called Vyazma. And that's where we are. Now, my troops are going to be all spread out along this road here, in one big line. We've got Davout's 1st Corps, Ney's 3rd Corps, Eugene's 4th Corps, some of Poniatowski's 5th Corps, a lot of stragglers and various units. The Russians are pretty much on every side. In real life, in the real battle, it was one of many rearguard actions. Maybe that's why it doesn't get a lot of credence when the French were actually pretty fresh, let's say, even though they were retreating, they were still in fairly good order. Winter hadn't kicked in yet. The other thing was the Russians and Kutusov were very cautious. He probably could have dealt the French an absolutely huge blow should he have followed up, but he was very cautious, didn't want to send in his main army. Luckily, the game has two scenarios covering, well, actually has a few, but the two I'm looking at has two. There's one, the one we're doing, or I'm going to do, when Kutusov does send in his main army. So I'm expecting a lot more Russians than there was traditionally. Now, I like to play historically, but I also like to play sandbox and play what-ifs. Now, my objective really has to be, there's an exit hex on the far west of the map, is to get everybody off, essentially, to live to fight another day. Big picture, that's certainly what you would do. However, being a wargamer, we like to play what-ifs. What if Ney, Eugene, Poniatowski, the Stragglers, and Davout managed to put a stand together, and we're talking, sort of 40, 50,000 troops each side, it would be a significant battle. What if they had made a significant stand? Because looking at it, it's a very good defensive area because of the rivers and the creeks and the valleys and what have you. I'm going to make it stand, of course. It makes a better video, I'll have more fun, hopefully you'll enjoy it more, rather than just marching troops across, putting a rearguard action in, which was what Ney did on the day. That's how Davout up until now was the rearguard of the army. Ney overtook him and then famously, bravest of the brave, led the rearguard out of Russia. So that's what we're sort of looking at, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail, naturally. And the blurb of the battle, let's say, Battle of Vyazma, November the 3rd. Miloradovich and the Russian advance guard caught much of the French army as it was moving through. As we said, Davout's 1st Corps was almost cut off in real life, but Eugene counterattacked and managed to sort of keep that connection between them two. You'll see how bad it is in a minute, and what a mess it's going to be. Kutusov does move in this case with his main army to take the opportunity to destroy the French army passing through. We're going to have a lot of Cossacks around. We're going to have a lot of cavalry attacks, as there was on the day. Russians are pretty much going to throw everything at us in this one. So, and we're in a big, long line. Interestingly, the Russians actually claimed a sort of almost a monumental victory, which increased their morale. But in reality, the French still had plenty of fight in them, but they did start to show some weaknesses and what have you. But we'll see what we can do. I guarantee our casualty numbers on both sides are going to be higher than real life. But let's see what we got then. So I'm going to take the French. Russians are going to be automatic. There's AI for both sides in this one. I've made a few adjustments to the order of battle that I'll explain as we go. I'm going to give them a bit of an advantage. Yeah, somewhere there. Usual rules apply. And we'll see what we've got. So I'm going to just fly through the Russians' turn. And as they're sort of going, I'm going to do a little bit of talking. Now, because there's not much credence given to this, even in some of the books and things I have, it was quite hard to find some decent material, some decent maps and things like that. Generally speaking, this is one of the better ones that I sourced online, certainly. And we can see the main Smolensk Highway, the area around Vyazma itself, the rivers and the water around, and the general positions of the Russians on the day. Now, sometimes the battle is the 3rd of November, it's claimed to be, and sometimes it's between the 3rd and the 5th and the 4th and the 6th and what have you. So there's a lot of various coverage given to the days leading up to and the days post the battle, as well as just the 3rd of November itself. See, it's not the best material or around. However, that's probably the best one. But I've got something else to show you. Well, I think when you can't find something, you need to crack out your heavies. Do I think anything's better than this now? Well, it's got a cover on it. However, probably one of my favourite books in my whole library, and if you know, you know, Esposito's Atlas of the Napoleon, of course. Absolutely fantastic reference. And the maps are second to none. Covers all of the campaigns. And they're a fair bit of detail, and there's a lot of text as well that go with them, just on the other side there, you'll probably be able to see. And I knew he would have something in there for what we're looking for. And I found it pretty well. We can see the whole situation here. We can see that this is the retreat through November, or until the early November. But what I quite particularly like, there is a nice little bit of detail, and it's kind of exactly what we're looking for in terms of what's actually happening and where we need to be. Vyazma, or Vyazma, I should say. The camera sorts itself out, we'll be able to see. We can see here then that we've got Davout in the rear with his first corps, Eugene with his fourth corps, Poniatowski. There's a bit of debate whether he was actually there or not on the day. I don't think he was, so I haven't included him in my little modification, and I see the original didn't have him there. Ney with his third corps, who will eventually become the rearguard for the whole army, and you can see why I then put in a little bit of, or remnants of Junot's 8th corps on the guard. Very few units, as I mentioned. So we can see why this has been set up. We can see hopefully the big picture where we're going for, Smolensk with the depots down there. Terrible supply problems with the French, and they were just starting to need to get to some supplies. The Cossacks had been running ragged on the French supply line up until now, and the French were in dire need of some supplies. Now, a common question, just while we're sort of have this open, is the comparison with Esposito's work and his atlas and the West Point military atlas of the Napoleonic Wars. Now, apart from being about a tenth of the price, I'll just show a direct comparison with what we're sort of looking at. And the maps have a little bit more colour on them for the high ground, but they just tend to... It's kind of once you've had a good thing like Esposito and you go back to something like this, and there's nothing wrong with them, they are good sources, it's just not quite the same. They cover a larger period with each map and try and superimpose it on everything, and obviously they have to miss little bits out. And they've missed out, apart from the actual place, Vyazma itself, and just said, yep, 3rd of November, there was something there. Obviously you can read about it and sort of line it up a little bit more in your head, but it covers a little bit more of a bigger picture, longer period. Whereas Esposito, if we just have another look, offers that nicer, sort of closer in detail, if you like, so you can actually see who was there, where they were, order of march, etc. Esposito, it's a legendary book. You know, it's akin to Chandler being the texts, more or less. Then Esposito would be the one for the maps. There we go, just another direct comparison. Both are good. If you're a series collector, Esposito. And if you're just getting into it, everything you need would be in the West Point. So the Russians have done whatever they've had to do because they went first, and I just wanted to show you basically where we're at. All strung out along that Smolensk Highway, pretty much in one big long line. We've got stragglers, got routed units, got piecemeal units, all the way back up here, and Ney and his defence around the city, getting into 5th Corps, and I've put some various stragglers in. Now, some of the accounts I've read had some Imperial Guard units there, they had some of Junot's 8th Corps there as well, and I've put in just a few random, I didn't really go into much about the order of battles for it, but it was just, I read Imperial Guard troops, not just the Italian Guard, which are also here, but Imperial Guard, some of Junot's troops. The Junot's not here, it's just elements of the Guard, elements of Poniatowski, about half of his corps, maybe a little bit more. He's not here himself. It's all to do with Eugene, Davout and Ney. Now, if we were to look at this and plan it, it's going to take a fair bit of planning, this one. But it's got to be done. I don't want to just bring troops along that road. I do need to have a nice bit of careful planning here. Otherwise, it's going to get very messy very quickly. It might just get messy quickly anyway. So that's our sort of overlying plan, as we can see. And we've got Davout right in the rear, and he's going to face most of the Russians coming from the east for sure. Then we've got Eugene, and they sort of split. The 4th Corps is kind of in the middle there, towards the Vyazma River, sort of that area. Where is it? Myskoko, or whatever it's called. And then the 1st Corps. And then we've got Ney in quite a nice defensive position around the south of the town, south and southeast of the town. Elements of the 5th Corps we have, and we've got elements of the 8th Corps as well as the Guard. So we've got a lot of troops to play with, and I'm going to break them down so you can see what we're fighting with and pretty much what we're fighting against as well. Looking at the west side of the map in a little bit more detail, we've got the 4th Corps, as we said, and up into that little town, I can't really read it, my glasses aren't that great, on the right hand side of the map is pretty much all of 4th Corps. 5th Corps are in the town, and I've got to decide what I want to do with them. Well, I think it makes sense that I need to create a very strong defensive position in the town and around the town. As I mentioned, it's very good defensive ground. We've got the river running pretty much all the way around the south, and then one in the north. We've got high ground, we've got marshes on the approach that you'll see. It's good defensive terrain. The problem is getting everybody back whilst we've got marauding Cossacks and things like that. Bring the Guard up as well as the 8th Corps into the town. I have to protect my line of retreat. Whilst I'm sort of making a stand, I do need to keep it sort of semi-historical in that sense. If all of these troops get cut off, it would have been an absolute disaster. And Napoleon losing probably the best part of 4 corps, and it would have been an absolute disaster. So I've got to figure out how am I going to get out. And I'm going to bring Eugene up and create little rings of defensive positions to allow Davout and protect the east of Vyazma and the approach, and to protect Davout coming back from the east in some high ground. There's going to be all these marauding Russians coming in. Davout's going to come back, hopefully through that defensive ring, back into some ground where he's a bit protected, regroup, essentially, rest. Well, if he's got time to rest, but regroup certainly, because I think it's just going to be a bit of a mess by the time his troops actually get back. There's going to be disorderment, leaders are going to have died, I'm going to have to sort out divisions and command and all sorts. So that's going to take some doing, but he has to get there in the first place. And meanwhile, got to protect the flanks on that road from hordes of Cossacks and cavalry. And there was a lot of cavalry attacks on the day, not the most effective. However, it's going to be an all-round defence along quite a long, thin stretch of road. Looking at the east side of the map, then we've got Davout, and on the west side there will be Eugene's corps. Now Davout has essentially just got to head west. But that presents its own problems as well. I can't just get his troops on the road and march. I do need to defend. Now, he did this in real life pretty well. And Napoleon used to get pretty annoyed at him because any time he saw a single Cossack, he would deploy his troops and things like that. But, you know, we're going to have to, within reason, defend. Now, we could, for example, play leapfrog and just have a group of units leapfrog the other units, but the road, there's no good ground to traverse to do that, because you need to be pretty sharp to do it, and have quite a clear area for your troops to march. So there's forest there. They could march through the forest, but if they get tangled up in the forest, it might be a bit of a nightmare. So I've got to come up with a fairly good plan in a little bit of detail, and we'll go into that in a second. So who have we got to play with today? Well, a couple of corps. We're approaching 50,000 men. Davout, Eugene, Ney, and we'll come to the others. So I counted them up, and Davout in his first corps, we've got just over 13,000 men. No cavalry, which could be a problem across the board for us if we're not careful. What he does have, though, is an awful lot of artillery. I've got an awful lot of artillery in general, to be fair. So I've got to try and get 13,000 troops across a congested highway whilst being attacked, as well as 110 guns, and not lose too many guns. Again, I want to play historically. I'm not just going to throw them away for the sake of it. Napoleon will need those guns in due course, so I'm going to do my best to protect them. Now, in his third corps, a lot smaller, only just towards 6,000 men. We do have some cavalry, and he's also got 70 guns, which is good. Eugene has the next corps with his fourth corps, 12,725 men, quite a few more cavalry, and 94 guns. And then what I'm going to call in the piecemeal, the stragglers, the bits of the guard, the bits of fifth corps. Fifth corps have quite a large contingent. They've probably got about 5,000-6,000 men in that, as well as some cavalry and most of those guns. But we do have a lot of cavalry, but they're all piecemeal. Various units. We do have some chasseurs et cheval of the guard, and I can't remember if we've got any more guard cavalry or not. I think no. I don't think there's much. So it's all very piecemeal. There's reserve cavalry as well. Montbrun, that we had in the last video, he's there with some of his reserve cavalry as well, some cuirassiers. And we're going to have to basically put all these together. So this is what I mean. Even though it's a rearguard action, it could potentially turn into quite a significant battle. And I looked at that defensive ground, and I'm quite defensive. I do like to set up my own defence rather than be placed in defence. Let's say, as Borodino, as the Russians, for example. I do like to be able to make my own mistakes with my troops and things like that. So I'm going to choose that ground, get into some good positions around the town, and hopefully send the Russians packing. So all in all, we got almost 46,000 men, almost 4,000 cavalry, but 315 guns. Now they're going to be valuable. I'm not going to throw them away. They could turn the tide of the battle, especially with the game engine. If I place my artillery in the correct places, or I can in time, and I've got a sufficient leeway to do that without Russians getting in the way, then I think that defensive ring could be tighter than a duck's bottom, let's say, watertight, around that town. So that's the plan anyway. Russians, I kind of had a look at them. I didn't want to go too much into it when I was looking in the editor and what have you. I know they've got plenty of infantry, pretty much their whole army, because Kutusov is sending in the whole army. Miloradovich, he's going to be there with his contingent as well as Platov with his Cossacks, which the game mimics Cossacks quite well, depending on where they're set up. So it's going to be quite a good battle, I think. Forces fairly even. And what happened in real life is, throughout the day, the Russians put in a lot of cavalry attacks, but they weren't that successful. They were very piecemeal, the ground wasn't that going, it caused a little bit of disruption, and the French got away pretty well. Eugene, the 5th, and Davout all got out because of Ney's third corps. The French set the town on fire, and as Ney was the rearguard, there was a final attack by grenadiers that pushed them out, and this is why they claimed victory. They took the field, and then they managed to get away. There was an awful bayonet charge by those grenadiers, and Ney's corps suffered quite badly, to be honest with you. So casualties on the day, depending on which source, and if you're taking the few days of the battle up to and everything, The Russians lost up to about 3,000, but the French actually lost up to about 8,000. The average seems to be about 5,000-6,000, and it was the first time that French casualties had been more than Russian casualties. But the French starting to show a bit of weakness. Their artillery was, they had, 300 guns, was actually quite ineffective apparently. They didn't set it up in the correct place or not for long enough, and it didn't really impact the Russians at all, as you can see. So in a bit more detail and a bit more depth then, this defensive line. We know, for example, that we have decent areas around the south and the southeast, and they're going to have to come into play. I do need to protect that exit though. That exit, whilst it might not come into play, or I might get victory points for exiting troops, I've got to play a little bit historically, so I will protect that exit, possibly with some of the 5th, that's my initial thought, or those troops in the Junot's 8th Corps. I can't remember how many I've got, for example, but they might stick by in those little town, or that little sort of suburban villages on that west side. The town itself has to be a strong point. That main Smolensk Highway coming through, with my traffic management skills, I'm going to have to ensure that Eugene can come back, as well as then Davout behind him. So that's a key objective for the Russians, I guess, and it's key point for me. 3rd Corps, they're going to be spread out along that southern and southeast edges. They're pretty much there already, probably just need to sort of fine tune it, and wait for the Russian onslaught, basically. In the sort of central section, we've got Vyazma there on our left-hand side. You just about see the outskirts of it. I've identified another couple of places where it might be quite nice to defend. So, Eugene's 4th Corps are going to go into the high ground opposite the marshes, protect that road, because I think everybody's going to have to go on the road. There's some nice cavalry ground there, but the problem is I don't have any cavalry. Then I've got to spread them out again, probably the ones that are retreating west. They're going to break off if they're pretty fresh and not being attacked too much. Protect that highway at all costs. We can't afford Davout or Eugene to be cut off. And then poor Davout, on that Vyazma road. 1st Corps are spread out, as you maybe saw earlier, and I've got a couple of options here. We also have part of Eugene's sort of corps there, but they are going to as much as possible tail it west. I could play leapfrog, as I mentioned, and move 4th Corps back, and then move elements of the 1st Corps behind, and then sort of leapfrog as we go, and then bring... The problem with this is that there's only 1 or 2 elements actually doing any defending. Those woods I'm looking at there, pretty good all the areas there, the only defensive area. And it can get messy, as I mentioned. You've only got 1 road, and you can only get 1 unit on the road. I mean, single line, let's say. So they'll have to go through those wood with the furthest east elements, and that's going to slow things down. Who knows? The Russians are out here. They're to the north. Cossacks around. So I'm going to disregard that, even though it is a valid option. And what I'm going to have to do is bring the whole marching order along, and as we go have little pockets of resistance so that I can allow the troops to escape into the further west they get, the stronger my position becomes, and I need Davout's corps there because it's quite a strong corps. It's the strongest corps on the map, so I need to have him towards the end, the middle of the battle, if I can get him through, for example. So it's going to be a fighting retreat rather than leapfrogging. I will have to then leapfrog when the Russians appear and it gets too much. Then the whole corps are going to come back with the marauding Russians, and there's not much I can do about that. The idea being that as we get back to safety in Vyazma, then we should be able to have a much better defence. So that, gentlemen, is the plan. Now, the playthrough of this video is going to be a little bit shorter. I understand the last one's long, and I just get carried away with time sometimes. So I'm not going to show you my movement during turns. I will show the Russian combat, but I will show it at a faster speed, a faster resolution. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, what I've done after I've moved, like my videos before. Just saves an awful lot of time, and we're on, I think, I can't remember, 40 turns. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll do it. I'll come back. Things might have changed. We'll do combat resolution, etc. And it just saves a bit of time. So, having a look at what we've actually got to deal with at the start. This is Davout's first corps, furthest east on the map. We've got some artillery set up. We've got some bloody stragglers that are not really under anybody's command. They're just going to have to run. I could be very, very gamey and put them out as targets for Cossacks and things like that, but I'm not going to do that. They are going to do their best to get back to safety. You know, I could just move him up there and let the Cossacks and the marauding cavalry and whatever else, and move them down here to deal with these troops down here, dragoons, our old friends. We've got a good record against them. So stragglers, we've got stragglers, but we don't have too bad a position here. So, initially, my thought is to, we got some guns there. Russians have massive batteries of bloody guns. And Cossacks, yeah. Cossacks, and they also have some light troops, and some more troops coming down here, and down here. So yeah, that started already. So initial plan, as I mentioned, is to get as many troops as I can going west, and I think I am straight away Russians there, and get a bit of a defensive position around this forest here, because I think that's my second little line, my pocket of resistance, because the woods will give disorderment to cavalry and things like that, so it's always a good idea to sort of do that, use woods as I can. So my second little pocket of resistance is going to be on those woods. The troops that are in between are going to get on the march. As that position's set up, limit the guns up, start pulling some of these troops back through the woods, and then I suppose I'll be looking for another defensive position. Ooh, not much here. It's a bit far back, but this little Myasovidovo, or whatever it's called, pronunciation, I apologise again. But it's not too bad. Possibly put out some outliers. Depends what I see, you know, you've got to react, but we do need a bit of a plan. In the meantime, Eugene and his 5th Corps, they're on the march there. They're going to break off into these defensive positions here. Any elements he's got here have that nice defensive position on the approach to the town. That's my reserve cavalry. That is good cavalry ground. I'll think about bringing them out to this cavalry ground, but then you've got to think getting them back through marshes on a road that might be congested. There is no other sort of viable way, which is a good thing. Remember, this is it's a nice defensive position. The road there we'll have to protect. So I'll think about bringing the cavalry there. 5th Corps, 5th Corps, which are in the town. What I'm going to do with them, they're going to defend the town and act as a reserve for Ney and the elements of Eugene on the our side of that marsh. And then our sort of, I don't want to call them stragglers because they're not, our piecemeal units and what have you. We'll bring them into play, and this has to be protected. So, I mean, look here, we've got, are they Westphalian Guard cavalry? We've got Old Guard artillery, Westphalian Guard artillery, I should say. Got the Old Guard, Grenadiers and PA. We've got Tirailleurs and Voltigeurs and more artillery. Oh, we've got gendarmes as well. I was kind to myself. And Chasseurs Cheval, more Guard, Westphalian Jaegers, etc., etc. So, between that lot, I think I'll bring the Guard over. It's nice to play with the Guard and the Guard cavalry, which I think we'll need. I might leave the Westphalian cavalry here. Anyway, I need to protect that exit. So that is the plan. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to stop. I'm going to move. So I moved everything around, and these first turns in almost a complete unknown really are just that. It was all a bit of an unknown. I'm going to start on the west side and just sort of show you everything and who does what and what I did with everybody. And down in the far west, I've left that little detachment of Westphalian cavalry, Guard cavalry, to just keep an eye on that exit. I've got the Guard in some sort of march elements of the 5th there, Guard cavalry. It's a bit of a mess. I've decided all my stragglers, these little guys here, I'm going to exit them from the map at least. So there'll be a few thousand that will live to fight another day. I don't think I'll ever unroute them. Just got to get them out of there. They can cause a bit of chaos if I'm not careful on the roads and the marches as well and things like that. So yeah, just get them out of the way essentially. The protection of this west side of the river is going to fall under elements of the 8th. The crossing itself, elements of the 5th, some poles. So just sort of setting up on the high ground there. I forgot to mention that the 5th Corps that are in the town are actually fixed. But if we have a look there at when they release, 12 noon, which is in a couple of hours. I don't think I'll need them until then, and then I'll scurry about. I don't think I'll need a hopefully that I will not need a defensive position in the city or the town before then. Nay, I just moved everyone forward, or just moving everybody forward to a little bit more of a frontal position, overlooking the marshes. That bridge needs a bit of protection, moving my artillery around. I've got a lot of artillery, and they're just basically overlooking the marsh, because if you think about the game engine, if Russians crossed here, they'll get disordered, more than likely get disordered there. It's hard going over here, by the way, and movement points are reduced. I think it's sort of mud. Let's have a look. Clear elevation. There's some areas here where I was surprised at the lack of movement points, or they didn't go very far. Anyway, and then moving some artillery around here, just again to create that defensive position. Move my reserve cavalry off the road. They're going to sit there until I may or may not need them. A bit of a mess with Eugene's corps, but I am using the Italian Guard to have a nice strong position with a lot of artillery overlooking here, because this is kind of last chance saloon bar Vyazma itself. Moving troops off the road, put the cavalry, the Italian cavalry on the high ground, pushing outposts out, and let's have a little bit of a flank on here, and essentially, yeah, just to protect this area here. Middle part of, or the tail end, I suppose, of Eugene's corps, they're just basically marching up to join their comrades. I am going to make a little stand at that village that I can't pronounce, Miasoidevo, I'm going to say. And up popped, as I was moving around trying to position troops, some Russian dragoons, and we've got some dragoons here. And as you'll see in a minute, they're already potentially causing a few problems. I mean, those light troops, they're going to get hit, probably next turn. Again, just pushing people out on the road just for that very reason, because who knows what's either side of this road. It's very fun, it's makes me a little bit nervous. And then getting that position in the woods, I've already had to deploy some troops in squares, just because there's no other way, and put artillery in there to deal with those dragoons that are so close. I do have some light cavalry, I wanted to move them, just because there's a few hundred dragoons there, and you know, Chasseur Cheval, they're not going to do anything, not 200 of them. And Stragglers, yes, they're off the road, but I just needed to get everybody on the march, and they're going to basically get on the tail end and push through. Not going to scout with them, not going to use them for bait and things like that, as I said. Davout, I just thought, right, I'm going to extend this line to the south a little bit just in case, and up popped a lot of green counters. And therefore I'm going to have to sort of strengthen Davout's rearguard, take Sarajevo, take that high ground. I brought my front line back a hex for the same principle. If those Russian troops or Cossacks come over, they're going to be disordered, get on here and not disorder my own troops. Got some artillery. There's not much combat I can actually do, however, we'll take a pop shot at some Cossacks. That horse artillery can't unlimber. Have I got any horse artillery in my squares? I do indeed. I'm determined to make more or better use of my artillery than Davout, Eugene and Naded on the day. To be honest, I think that's about all the combat I can do. There's no Russians yet that far west. Over here, yeah, I suppose. What do we got in there? Light guns, yeah, they'll have a crack. And we've got some horse artillery there, probably won't be able to see them, however, turn them so that they are facing for next time. No movement points, of course. Yeah, I think that's pretty much this turn all I can do. So I'll play it through as the Russians, but I will do it quickly. So keep up. We'll save that as the battle. Yeah. More troops coming in. I'm pretty sure I saw Cossacks or cavalry. The counters I did differentiate very slightly the cavalry that's on them, so they look like a Cossack silhouette. You can see, there's one on the right hand side with a little flag and a lance. That's a Cossack. Right. Oh, stragglers. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? Right. Well, sort this mess out then. Yeah, look at that. There's a lot of Russians there. Let's have a think then. Bring Davout in, otherwise that rearguard is going to get cut off. If I'm not careful, and the Russians come up here, they could cut off Davout's rearguard, and I would be in a bit of a mess. Right from turn one, in my squares. Okay, that's a very small square. 100 men. They attacked. The Polish Lancers. Not all the artwork's done, by the way, but as I mentioned in the last video, that it was a preview. It will be with you when it's ready. Stragglers are legging it, no surprise there. Going towards the Russian lines. Maybe they are defecting. Not Saxon, are they? No, doesn't say. Okay. Dragoons in the woods. Luckily, did they come out here by the look of it? They left them alone. What an escape that was for those light troops. Right, get my defensive position sorted out here, bring more troops back, sort my defensive position here, and Cossacks. 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 Yeah, Cossacks. Well, it was expected, wasn't it? So, try and sort out this mess back here. Strengthen my position around the woods. A little bit of sorting out to do in this little village. Keep moving troops back. Move them north because there's Cossacks around. Sort out my strong guard final outpost before Vyazma. Sort Ney out. Sort that order of march out over here. And I'll be back. I'm enjoying this one. It's yeah, quite a challenge. So what happened there? Out on the west side, annoyingly we've got disordered chasseurs cheval who are holding everybody up a little bit. It's tough going, sort of getting through those woods, but it is what it is. Ney moving into his defensive position. Nothing to really write home about there. The Italian Guard, though, I did break off some light cavalry, some lancers, and some chasseurs cheval, just with their small squadrons, just to try and pre-warn me of any Cossacks and anything else that might be out there that I need. They can remember. Got a little outpost there as well. We're just watching that road should anything come down. I'm having to react to these Cossacks that are coming in. So I'm having to send troops out this sort of direction, put square, get some artillery. I doubt we can see them, possibly. Let's have a look. But we can. Just to try and protect that, because it's supposed to be my bastion here, my a strong point. Had to send troops up here as well, off the road, some Italians. We've got Italian, yeah. And, yeah, over to this sort of flat ground here. That's going to get into a bit more of a line, a bit neater as we go. Sort of one there, one sort of like this, protecting the road. What I did notice is just zooming in a little bit. There's some quite nice places just to cover as well the retreating troop. If the Russians come from that direction, they seem to be coming from everywhere at the minute. There's some. They're line Cossacks. I thought when I saw the little artwork, the Cossacks. However, they don't have the Cossack symbol. That's because they're attached Cossacks. They're part. They're not just sort of like Platov's Cossacks were essentially used as sort of, as well as Cossacks, line cavalry as well, light cavalry. Dragoons over here. Everybody's sort of passing through. Moved a little outpost here just to look over the river for those Cossacks. And then we have a square here, and we do have some artillery. Yeah. Push troops out here. It's going to be very piecemeal. The mess is with Davout, that rearguard. The stragglers, annoyingly, I don't know what I'm going to. What I can try to do with them is just do my best to get them. I'm not going to abandon them, but do my best to get them back to their line. It's a long way, way back to the other side of the map, but I will do my best. What do we got with the squares then? Right, got some artillery that's set up overlooking where they seem to be attacking. We do have our light guns in that square, so we will go for those dragoons. 35. Oh, that square, I tell you. That'll break next turn if we're not careful. Horse artillery here. Horse artillery, old light guns here. I have tried to get my stragglers back. They were sort of going down towards the Russians again. In my head, they're trying to defect. But I know it's the engine just going crazy and sending them everywhere. This is a bit of a problem if I'm not careful because just of the position it's in. So sort of every other battalion I'm sort of trying to bring them back a little bit, but it's not that easy. So slowly but surely they're firing on me with artillery from their side of the embankment. It's disordered a few troops, trying to move them back as best I can. It's a bit of a nightmare. Can't do much in the centre, I guess, where those dragoons stole my supply. And some lancers. I'm just going to get a bit of revenge on them, I suppose. Line troops that are routed as well. Where are they from? Third Brigade, 4th Division. Third Brigade. They're disordered as well, so I want them to sort him out. Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. I'm not surprised. They've been attacked from. In danger of being cut off and attacked from two sides, and I dare say there's something up there. Artillery is about all I can do from this side. Move my skirmish line back as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting so far. That could potentially be a problem. We've got dragoons in the middle, going to have to sort them. Dragoons attacking these squares. We've noticed Cossacks to the north, having to push people out where I didn't really want to push people out. An all-round defence. What I don't want is to have this horrible, and I don't think I will, I'm going to try not to, have this horrible sort of defensive line here in this sort of shape. I'm not carrying that one. But you get what I'm saying, that I've got to come off the road in a really thin blue line here and here, let Davout try and get through. I don't want that. I'll avoid that. That would be far too messy. But there we go. So let's see what the Russians have got then. More Cossacks by the look of it. Quite a few troops coming up there as well. Division of somebody. Yeah, and I thought, yeah, that's quite a big attack down there. Oof. One thing that annoys me about the AI is cavalry attacking squares. They seem to do it on the regular, but each to their own. And we've got more Cossacks over with the Italians as well by the look of it. So, more Cossacks. We expected them. More Cossacks. So the Italians are going to have to deal with them. It looks clear to the south. In the middle, luckily it looks clear. The trouble is when you move some troops and send, you end up with a gap in the march, and I'm a bit wary of that. Just I'm afraid of basically what happened here with letting dragoons in. Still not entirely sure what happened there, but never mind. They're there. We'll deal with them. And we've got these dragoons here. We've got a lot coming up the road. Infantry, artillery, division of somebody up that road. So that's why I've got that little defensive line here in the village. Davout, what are you going to do? Move back and back and back and back towards the woods. We have got a bad position there. We need to get our stragglers back as best as possible. I'm going to bring this line here back as well as much as I can. Looks like they've started to come over. A lot of artillery there. That's going to smash me up as I try to move troops. Yeah, but there we go. So far, so good. It's quite interesting on this one. So I'll get moving, and when I get back, we'll see what the Russians do. Well, that cavalry at the start, that's really put a dent in my plans for Davout. They're causing a little bit of chaos. Quite a few units have sorted themselves out, so I've been able to get them on the march back here. But these dragoons are sort of in between lines. They're causing a little bit of chaos here. All I can pretty much do is just try and give them a bloody nose and do my best to get rid of them. I've noticed they're slipping down the forest as well, so we've got to be careful of that now. Hopefully these guns can do enough to, let's say, give them a bloody nose and bugger off. That's about all I can do. Like I say, I've got a lot of artillery, so that's about the only thing I've got going for me at the moment. And they're facing the wrong way. They're facing the dragoons first, I think, because that infantry is not going to get up there in the next turn. I've left all but one battery here, and they're going to be the last men out. They've volunteered just to cover the rear, make sure nobody else slips in. Don't want them to cross that river at the moment, anyway. What else we got? Really, I did position my light cavalry here. 300 disordered Polish lancers against 200 with leader. I'll take Corps Commander out. It's kind of one of those you have to situations. You wouldn't necessarily do this ordinarily. However, the situation that we've got, it might be just what we need to rout them, get them out. Who knows? I'm going to try it. Desperate times and all that. So they're charging through the road with a leader. Advantage defender. I thought it would be. 23-17. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so what I did there, with that rear guard, just brought everybody back as best I could. Skirmishers are routing quite a lot. We've got line troops there, so we've got my brigade commander in there to try and sort them out, and just trying to move everybody back slowly and surely and steadily, I guess. Got some horse artillery there that can come up. Give some Russians a bloody nose. Nice big juicy stack. Yeah, artillery was ineffective on the day, and it looks like it's ineffective here, and I moved them right up to skirmishers, which I didn't really mean to do. Everybody else has moved. In the woods, in the defensive position, sort of in the middle by the village, I put some skirmishers forward, just in the trees, and I came across some skirmishers and some artillery moving into place. I have to sort of pull myself back a little bit because limited. I've got a lot of troops, but not where I need them to be to take advantage. If they break, the parent unit breaks, that's going to leave a big hole. Everybody sort of has a specific role, and for them it includes not going on the attack. Watch out, defend that road, and get back when you can. That cavalry just seems to be hanging there. No problem. So again, I have to bring another battalion up just to cover that little gap there. Nothing much happening. Nothing much happened over here. The Italians, the 4th Corps, they have pushed out. They're getting into a bit of a nicer line now here, just in case something comes from those roads down there or along this parallel road to the Smolensk Highway. And we got some Cossacks to deal with. So I managed to sort of stabilise this line a little bit, get it looking a little bit more like it should. And I just unlimited them, that's why they can't fire. Horse artillery can. Oh. And they've unlimbered, so they won't be able to do much. They can't do much, they can't do much. I brought the Guard Cavalry over as well. They're going to join the rest of the Guard Cavalry up here. And it's not a bad little spot for them. Get some infantry in front and then pull the cavalry back. That's obviously what we're going to be doing there. Getting everybody else on the march where I can. Broke off some more dragoons to follow up my light cav. Because I just saw there, maybe not that stack, 60 odd and 60 odd squadrons. If it's just Cossacks, and that's why we're sending out light cav to just see, is it just light cavalry, then my dragoons and my lancers are more than a match for them. But I need a little bit of concentration in force. I don't know how else I'm going to really use my cavalry except as a last resort. So breaking them off, I think would have overwhelming numbers, I would say, if it's just roguing Cossacks over here. But we shall see. What would be nice is some artillery with them. Some horse artillery. Yes. They're on the birds. Yeah, and take some Westphalian horse artillery with them, just in case. Stragglers, keep them on the move. These units being fixed is a little bit annoying. I'm not one for fixed units, to be honest, but never mind. Nay, he's got himself into quite a nice position now, overlooking this little crossing here. I'm not afraid of anything passing over here now, so yeah, that's good. He's in a very tenable position. Out here, right to the far west, that little battalion of Poles and that artillery, they're just going to keep overwatch up there. I'm marshalling the guard here because of this the chasseurs chevals are really messing stuff up. Now, as for leaders and things, I maybe was a little bit too quick to get stuff ready and what have you. Just to well, like Walther, I don't think he's here with the Guard Cavalry. I don't remember if I put him in or not. So they might just take a little bit longer to reorder themselves. So it's pretty much hex by hex here. But in my head, we can simulate that they're actually just a little bit further. They're a bit confused about what to do, why to come back. That's how I'm justifying it in my head. So that is the situation at 9:15 on November the 3rd. Not too bad. It all depends, really, a lot of it hinges on what Davout can do. Right, let's go back, have a look at what the Russians do. They're like termites or something, mosquitoes, they just pop up everywhere. There's quite a bit of cavalry down there. And a lot more cavalry there. That attack that's going in there by that couple of divisions, I would say, with the skirmishers, they did me a favour there by pulling down to the left. Cavalry coming up there as well. First thing on pans. Oh no. Anyway, the stragglers, they are, that's what I noticed there. Again, they're trying to get back to Russian lines. The others are going through the forest, trying to at least escape, and got some oh well, it is what it is, and We managed to rout. Oh, they did. Well done, light cavalry. Well done. So, another case, business as usual. Try and sort this little mess out here. Looks like we've managed to push off a little bit of cavalry here. So maybe stabilise this line a little bit. Be on the lookout for what this attack's going to do. We've bought ourselves a little bit of space up here to try and get sort of the majority of these troops through, as long as they're not too disordered, should I say. Good. This little defensive position here, interestingly, more cavalry, so I think there's going to be more squares there. Might bring some artillery off that road to make a little sort of C-shaped defensive perimeter. Looks okay here. Yeah, we've got those Cossacks, but it's tough ground to get over for them there. That marsh will have lots of time to get something in place if they decide, like the AI does, to go that route. Get our position sorted here. Deal with some Cossacks here. Get this light cavalry. I am kind of interested to sort of see if I can. No, we might the next turn we'll be able to see up on this ridge and what's out in this sort of area up here on this plateau. I would have thought I'd be able to see most of it now, for example. What have we got that's probably going to be able to see there? Okay, maybe not. Maybe not, maybe not. I thought we might have done. Just been able to see up on that plane. Not a problem, not an issue. That's exactly why we've got that light cav coming up there. Just a bit wary that what we find. But we're sending up reinforcements so they'll be able to deal with it. Sort out the mess at the... Pretty sure I made a bit of a boo-boo here. I think what I did is I accidentally forgot to press record for the first bit of the last video, and then when I went to moving, which I don't show you, I pressed record, because then when I looked at the videos back, I thought, why is it just me moving? Then I realised what happened. So in essence, we skipped a turn, but not to worry, you knew the grand plan, and it won't be that much different. One thing I did notice is that for some reason the Russians have given us a bit of an out here. If I start moving everybody back, yes, we've got some dragoons there that we're going to have to try and deal with, but hopefully I've given myself enough time to break through their lines, essentially, or not let them break through ours is more important. They are starting to cross the river. I'm just going to press play for the Russians and see what happens, and then we'll go from there and catch up. Cossacks on the move. That division looks like it's coming up. Just making sure I'm recording now, yeah. Quite a bit of cavalry. I can't remember what I said in the last video as well. Memory's terrible. But we'll get back on track with this turn. Not to worry. What news? Raffle was done last night. Thanks to the couple of people that ensured I wasn't a loner at midnight on my own, announcing some winners on a random program on Google that allowed me to put names in and draw names from a hat, essentially. But congratulations to Mark, to Alan, and to Ray as well for winning those. Hope you enjoy them. Mark, I'll have to have a look into the logistics of getting that OSG game, but you're in the States, so I told you, noble night, probably I'll do it through that way, and I'll get that sorted straight after I recorded this, so not the whole thing. I'll do a couple of turns and then get that sent out to you. Alright then, so what have we got? Well, they're closing in on us. That's kind of to be expected. That cavalry that was there has gone, which is a good thing. Polish Lancers. So, if I time it right, I can get the majority, hopefully, of these troops back into the woods and back to the next defensive line, which is coming under attack from that division up the road. From cavalry, well, we've got Polish Lancers. Yes, the French have got Polish Lancers. The Russians also had Polish Lancers. Quite a few of the nations had Polish Lancers, acting as mercenaries. Interesting to see if, well, I haven't got any cavalry here, so that's a hypothetical that's not going to happen in this one. My Polish Lancers against their Polish Lancers. But that won't happen. The Italians taking up a nice defensive position. My cavalry, I'm going to move them up, my light cavalry. Business as usual with Ney, sorting out that defensive position. He's in quite a nice position now, to be honest. It's not too bad. He's overlooking that road.
when the 5th, and I might, do I send the guard when yeah, I might bring, it depends actually, I have the guard as a reserve, so this area, and they can either react over here, which I don't think, hopefully they'll need to, or they can come down here, because I want the 5th. Okay then, so this is turn 6 still, and where are we at? Right, let's start with Davout, I think, over here. Managed to get a little bit of semblance of order, and most people on the road, turn 2 or 3, then hopefully we'll get them out of this mess through the woods. All depends on what that cavalry's going to do. Dragoons are over there, just started bringing everybody back little by little. That battery of 8-pounders back there, we're bringing them up. They fired their last shot because they're hot on their heels are some Cossacks, so we'll bring them back. A couple of skirmishers have volunteered to hold, or been told to sort of hold a little bit of a perimeter. My cavalry here, I'm going to take back this supply because it should be quite, or it could be quite useful. We've got enough, but we might as well. In the big picture, they probably do it because they would need it. We didn't lose anything to do it. Polish Lancers there, and we have a disordered square. We still have some dragoons. We've got the cavalry there, and we've got a square. So, all in all, not too bad. Artillery, blast away at this marauding cavalry. I turned this gun round in the forest to cover that little approach there for the road, so I can't fire this turn. My treacherous stragglers keep trying to bring these 2 back. The rest of them are going through the woods. They have to, there'd be too much congestion in the road. My little defensive position here didn't really strengthen it that much. I mean, Davout's made a bit of an HQ here. These Italians haven't sorted themselves out for a few turns now. I think all we can do is pretty much fire away with some artillery. That's about all we can do. There's some artillery in there as well. No. They've had a bit of a rough time. Just try and get them to disappear as much as possible. The guns go in there, over there. No, but they will go there. Bit more protected. They are disordered. They're not. Yeesh. We'll see. And up over this little hill, so we're talking to the east of my little defensive village that I can't pronounce, some more Russians. So I've had to bring some Italian troops, they're not Italian, First Corps, still Davout's, off the road, just to create a little barrier, stop anything coming up to hit the road at that little section there. Pretty happy that I've got quite a few turns if the Cossacks decide to go over the marsh. And what I also have is some horse artillery I'm going to station there, just to take some potential pop shots at them if needs be. This is a little bit more serious, potentially. Depends what's down there. Skirmishers can skirmish. And just getting into a bit of a defensive position around here. Now there's 2 or 3 roads down here, 2 roads in and out. And the lesser Revel or Revets crossing, that's going to have to be protected. Or, in my favour, they could go over the marsh, disrupt themselves, come up the hill into fairly fresh troops, not a huge amount of them, they're pretty depleted, into some fresh Italians, and bringing the guns up, bringing my cavalry forward just to have a look. Business as usual here, essentially. I have lined up my lancers for those Cossacks next turn, if they oblige. And I'm sending my dragoons on a mission bypassing the lancers to the north. The ideal here, hide their approach in that sort of gully, and then pop up and then hopefully there's not masses and masses of Cossacks. And we've got what, 50, 200, 300, 400 dragoons and some horse artillery, plus whatever's left of those lancers, another 200 lancers. I would take that all day. Not a bad little fight, hopefully. Nay, nothing. The guard, they got on the road, they started marching. Of course, Chateau Cheval, when they're not on the road, they don't sort themselves out, but they do when they're in a march. So, yeah, they sorted themselves out. Westphalians just making a bit of a defensive position. The first lot of our stragglers, almost at the exit. And, yeah, that's about it. So there we go, that's the situation at the moment. I wonder what's here on this ridge. Infantry, they're not likely just to be on their own. Cossack situation in the north, slowly heading down with some artillery. Single figures, thank goodness. More Cossacks, 200 odd Cossacks. Disordered. I wonder if Kutusov, I wonder when he's arriving with the main army. Hussars as well. Lots of cavalry around. Right, well, I've moved and attacked all I can, I think. Let's have a look. They fired. There's some artillery here. Doubt they'll be able to possibly see anyone. Oh, they can. And I suppose we've got supplies there, so all good, I reckon. Very ineffective, but that's to be expected. Right, what have the Russians got in store? I'll tell you what, I am going to slow it down. Slow it down. Is it F9? Nope, obviously not. Can't remember, got the hotkey somewhere. Things seem to be appearing where I don't see blue counters. A lot going on. It's a slightly longer turn, even though it's been sped up. Lost a gun there, sorry. And we lost another leader. Right, let's have a look through this mess. They did charge, indeed. I should have really. Do you know what? When I brought that bigger stack up, I did think about facing them that way, and I thought, there's no way they'll go that way. They're surely going to go to the east, and they didn't oblige. Cossacks closing in, and more Cossacks. Big old stack of bloody Cossacks. And down here, guns, infantry, skirmishers. Yeah, so it was a right decision. They're a little bit too far forward. They're going to come back a little bit, keep to this sort of inner ridge as much as possible. Nice tight defensive line. This cavalry's just standing off, not really doing anything. At least it's left our guns and newly arrived troops to. There's that horse artillery coming around. Might have to try and do something about that this turn. We'll see. Who have we got coming up the road? Yeah, we got some fresh troops coming up the road. I think I'll have a go at that horse artillery. Fresh infantry with the leader. Yeah, I think we'll have to bring that skirmish line back to nearer to the road. And they managed to cut us off, eh? Bugger. So that would need a little bit of sorting out. They probably won't be able. Oh, they can form square, but the problem is they form square. That's buggering up that march, and we need to get everybody out. That is the priority. Just have to batter them as much as possible, I guess, with what I can, which is not a lot. Good news is there's no huge advancements. They're slowly pushing a skirmish line forward, but bringing the infantry. Oh no, they're still skirmishers. Cossacks, fresh Cossacks. Well, possibly. Not disordered, and there's a fair few of them as well. So business as usual, bring everybody back as much as I can, try and open the roadway up clear, get rid of those dragoons as best I can. Strengthen this little position here. Keep my dragoons going on that northerly sort of flanking manoeuvre. Ideally, Cossacks want to come here to attack. It's not the best cavalry ground they're going, especially if they attack here, they've got to go uphill. Dragoons come round, hidden out of view. Yeah, ideal world. Sort this out. Sort this out. It's just pretty much the same, not much more to say. Davout is the interesting part at the minute. Right, I'll stop recording, I'll get all that done and come back to you for the combat. So as I was moving around, I noticed some green counters in the south. Coming to pay Ney a visit, more Cossacks. Hardly surprising. We're getting into quite a nice defensive position down here now to cover that road. Cavalry overlooking there. We've got quite a good line of sight over their side of this side of the ridge, Russian side of the ridge, this area anyway. And the plateau, it looks clear. From what I can see, it looks clear. But they're not going to be on their own. That's going to be a division, I would have thought, at least. Get my gun set up on this side to protect these guys, bringing a gun forward as well. And like I say, I want to limit my offensive operations as possible. And I was thinking, real life, Davout got in trouble. He did get cut off, and Eugene with his fourth corps, which sort of this is fourth corps basically, they had to mount a counter-attack. So I can't remember if I recorded it or thought I recorded it, but I did mention briefly about sort of using this as a marshalling area for fourth corps. They're a bit spread out, obviously, but I don't think I need everybody there. There are some troops that have crossed over, but they can certainly come back. I've brought this line in a little bit for the Cossacks. I don't need to be on that side of this gully here. So where are we? Yeah, here. So I brought them back this side of the gully. They were over here. Big old stack of Cossacks. Brought my cavalry up. Dragoons are coming up as planned. A fair few Cossacks out there. And up here, try to get as many back on the road marching as I can, but making sure that I just don't get descended upon by the green hordes. So I think we'll start with Davout and whatever I'm able to do with him. These guys, they've done disordered themselves. It's good. Oh, I thought they had line of sight on someone. No, but they're going to keep the guns facing that way because I reckon those dragoons, 50 odd, 60 odd, 50 odd, they'll pop up, and that will be grape shot, or canister I should say, right in the face when they come up. Yeah, they can fire. It's going to thin the ranks, not half. And a bit of a mess here. I made a bit of a mistake moving this stack because I ran out of movement points. This is very gamey, and I'm a bit annoyed I did it, and it's a bit of a gamble. I put the next column on the road in line because it offers a good amount of firepower. Would it have happened? Probably not, but desperate times, and you didn't see anything. And it wasn't worthwhile for sure after all that. But that's those optional rules kicking in. Cavalry, I did think here. Chasseur Cheval against Dragoons with a leader though. Yeah, I did think about charging. I did have a little bit of a thought because their last charge was successful, but I think it got away with one. So I reckon that, you know what, I will just bring them as a deterrent rather than anything else, I think. Guns coming back. So everybody's just slowly pulling back onto that road, making sure we basically get back as far as we can. Stragglers all going through the woods, managed to persuade them to sort of come back towards my lines. Over here, starting to think now, sort of weaken this ridge up here a little bit, because there was nothing there. Marsh is going to give me a little bit of time. More troops come in, I'll place somebody back over there. A little bit more critical is this division coming up. I've got to keep that road open. I mean, Eugene can counterattack for sure, but with limited scope, I wouldn't really want to push past the village and what's down here, because you just overextending again. What I am going to have a go at is this artillery in the woods with these light troops. We get an advantage, it's good. And we pushed them back, good. Didn't do anything to their battery. I managed to break off from the road, put that fatigued unit, line troops in square, and unlimbered the battery. We've got the battery here as well, closest. Yeah, closest I think. Oh, lethal. So that's given them a bit of a bloody nose anyway. And let's have a look down here. I don't think there'll be any more combat anyway, not this turn, unless, yes, I did line up here. Now, this is lined up for the next turn, and I took a lesson out of my own book. They're going to stay where they are. If they want to charge, that's fine. I took a gamble, left them facing that way, so if the Cossacks retreat, they'll charge, and if they stay where they are, I've got these lancers to charge, and I'll bring in the leader. Even though they're disordered, I will have a crack at them anyway. Small victories. This is what this one is about, I think. Small victories everywhere. All these little pockets that I need to be dealing with and sorting out. Stragglers are... oh, forgot them. Slowly getting back. I thought I had another unit of stragglers around here. There we go, I do. Couldn't find them a minute ago. But they're almost back safe. One did, or that lot did make it back to the exit hex. And that is our situation at the end of turn 7. So it's not too bad, no panic. Looks a bit chaotic in places. But organised chaos is better than pure chaos, I reckon. We just have a look at what's been happening. Oof, heavy cavalry losses for them. We've lost 2 leaders, they've lost 1. 70 infantry, only 70, I've lost 600, almost 700 already. Blimey. And I'm on for a minor victory, but as I've said, I don't really care about that. That's because they could still push me back and get these VPs. Hundreds, oh, 250, the ones, yeah, so in reality, as I mentioned, the real battle, the Grenadiers, Russian Grenadiers pushed Ney back at great cost to both of them, and they would have taken these VPs. Don't remember reading about these VPs in books, but no, anyway. So that's where the points would come for a victory for the Russians, and decimating as much as possible Davout and Eugene. I think Ney's pretty safe. It'll be interesting to see what comes up from here. I mean, they're Cossacks, but we shall see. Over to the Russians then. Oh, they're coming on strong on that road. And more by the look of it. More Cossacks south of Ney by the looks. What is a division? Maybe even 2 divisions on the opposite side of the ridge behind the village. And I'd say reinforcements for the Russians have arrived for sure. And is that my cavalry that's been... no. Oh, it's bloody stragglers. Afraid of everything. Afraid of everything. Cavalry has been pushed back though. That's fine, they did their job. Protected that. And it's going to be business as usual. I'm not going to bore you with the details. You know exactly what's going to be happening during the next movement turn. I might put a movement turn or 2 on, put some music in the background, some fitting music, and move around. put in comments and stuff if it's worthwhile seeing the movement. It does extend the videos an awful lot though. More processing, they are longer, not everybody likes them, but if you want to see that, I don't mind doing a few turns. Where it looks like it'll be interesting, trying to get out of sticky situations and what have you, might do it. Yeah, so what have we got here? A division at least. All of a sudden that line looks excuse me, pretty thin, and there's a bit of a gap, and no one to really fill it unless I were to bring. There's no one really that ready to come back over this side, unless these guns can do a bit of damage. We shall see. This worries me now. If they're there, what else might be there? Looks fairly clear. Yeah, I would say at the moment it looks fairly clear. Dragoons. Yeah, so I think I'll move this turn, and then excuse me, I might. January colds. And the next turn I will probably show you. So I'll get moving and get back to you.